Welcome to the Clever Dicks podcast. In this episode, we're talking to James Hanson-Chong, who is the Special Operations Manager for the company that provides much of the safety for swim events in New Zealand. We cover safety in quite a bit of detail, including the items and skills that are necessary, the team and the lifeguards that provide it, interactions with systems like Safe Swim, and also what to do if you see a shark. We cover some of the rules and regulations that need to be followed. We talk about the kind of events that James has been involved in, which includes surf lifesaving, some of the large swim events, ice swimming, and assisting people doing marathon swims as well. Lastly, we cover some of the behaviours that he's experienced in looking after people in the swims and some of the things that we as swimmers can do to help. Hope you enjoy it. It was a great conversation. James, welcome to Clever Dicks.
Thanks for having me.
Well, what we thought we'd talk about was how swim events work. So James has got a lot of experience in that. He's the, is it the chief lifeguard, head lifeguard? What's your title?
The official title is Special Operations Manager.
Special Operations. Wow, that sounds special. Are you a very special person?
I don't know. I feel like that has bad connotations to it, so I'll just roll with the punches. It's what I'm given, and I'll just go with the flow.
Cool. Yeah, so in this episode, we're kind of thinking of just getting some kind of behind-the-scenes sort of view of what's involved in swim events. There's a lot of people out there just see the sort of the organised side of it. So we thought we'd just get a little bit of the good goss from you as to what it's like to actually...
A little bit of behind the scenes for you.
A little bit of behind the scenes, yeah. So one of the topics that I've been aware of is just the safety and the organising of that. So I was hoping you could just give us a bit of a background on what it's like to actually kind of just even get a permission to run an event.
So permission for running an event, that kind of starts about 12 months out. So we're currently sitting bang smack in the middle of the 2023-2024 season, and we're already starting to apply for permissions for the 2024-2025 summer season. So we're 12 months in advance to make sure that we get council permits, Harbour Master's okay with us operating, Maritime New Zealand is aware of us operating, getting all of our ducks in a row starts this far out.
Who needs council approval, man? Just go, a bunch of guys go for a swim.
You'd be surprised. So specifically for us, for Ocean Swim Series, we're looking at an average of 600 swimmers. So for any kind of event above 200, you need council sign-off to have that many people in a single location. So as much as we'd all love to just jump in the ocean and go for a swim, it's not viable, it's not safe to do that, especially without local government knowing what we're operating at.
So that was interesting. You said 200. Is that kind of a sort of a hard number? If you were just got 100 swimmers, is it a different set of rules, or how does that work?
So from my understanding of the guidelines from Auckland Council specifically, they're the ones I have the most to do with. 200 is a pretty hard guideline of if you're doing an event more than 200, then you do need event permitting, but it also depends on the activities you're undertaking. We're swimming events, so we are a little bit more niche, a little bit more high risk. We're classified as a dangerous sport if you're more than 100 metres offshore, so you do need permits for those kinds of things. But there are grey areas that you can kind of skate under the radar if you've got 100 or less swimmers. That's how community groups are currently getting away without much of any safety.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's kind of been on my mind as well. You know, we do a lot of informal swims, and there's a lot of groups all the way around the country that does that. And, I was just wondering how that sort of impacted, one of my sort of ongoing concerns, if you go and you organise a group, you might just send it out to a WhatsApp group or something, you get 20 people come up and a really bad event actually occurs. Is the person who might put the original post going to end up facing, lawyers and all sorts of things? Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that. I'm guessing there's no money in a small number of people. You're probably kind of...
Exactly. So you're looking at the fact that you're just a bunch of friends getting together and going out. So that's the same for if you went cliff jumping and you're all just a bunch of friends and you've just gotten together. That would be the same thing. But if you're an event organisation or a organisation that's taking payment, that's when things start to... You have the onus and you have the responsibility.
Taking payment is kind of... It's one of the sort of triggers to drive it.
Correct.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
More formal, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's definitely been a very significant example and case study that's going on within the swim community at the moment in people skating around council permitting and stuff because they're not taking payment. So there's definitely a few guidelines and stuff that are currently still in place, and council is aware of.
No, that's cool. So from the safety point of view, can you just cover the main sort of things that you need to cover for an event? What are the things that you look into? Obviously, you are very instrumental in the safety planning. What are the areas that...
So you'd be looking at a whole range of factors in terms of making sure your field is safe. Kind of your start point, your finish point, what are the environmental conditions going to look like, what are the extremes, what can happen, catering for that in any situation, emergency rendezvous points. Is that kind of what you're...
Yeah, that
course measurements.
Yeah, course measurements, making sure that we've got enough safety and density along our courses just to make sure that it is perfectly appropriate for the task that you're trying to take. For instance, you take a longer swim, you've got a little bit heavier safety. Shorter swim can be a little bit lighter. And what are the conditions like in the local area? Is it a surf event? Like, say you're swimming at the Mount and you've got breaking waves. Is that safe for the swimmers, and what do we need to do to account for that?
So one of the things that gets a lot of swimmers is when events get cancelled. So is that typically the event organiser, or is sometimes the cancellation come from external agencies?
So the cancellation would be one of three things. So you'd either have council pulling the pin. There was a few cases where council pulled the pin for various different reasons. Generally, local government factors, they'll pull the pin saying, hey, it's just not safe for you to run your event. Harbourmaster, we have a written document between us and Harbourmaster saying these are the conditions that we will operate in, and if it's above these like wind thresholds, tide thresholds, rain, thunder, then we won't operate. And there's the third set of we internally decide, hey, this actually isn't safe for us to run an event. We may be within those thresholds, we may be able to run, but it's just no longer, it seems no longer safe.
Cool. Okay.
Because we're always looking for making sure that it is safe for all of our swimmers.
Can I take a step back? Because you've dived into this, right? So just for our listeners' benefit, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay. Are you happy with the 27-year-old looking after your safety?
I'm more than happy with that. I used to be a surf life-saving instructor, and we used to teach 14-year-olds to look after us, and I'm more than happy with that.
You've got to remember that was when I started.
17 years old, yeah?
No, 14 years old.
14, okay.
So I started as a surf lifeguard as a 14-year-old and went through and did all my qualifications and have been doing event safety for the last, I think I just hit 10 years this year. And the majority of that experience was started with Northern Region, Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, Northern Region.
Lifesaving, yeah.
I did that for 7 years, and in that time I then progressed into external events, looking after the Ocean Swim Series and other events like that.
Did you watch Baywatch as a kid?
I never watched the original. I watched the reboot, and then I watched the original.
The original was way better. Right?
Yeah.
Pamela Anderson and David Hasselhoff running down the beach, all their bits and pieces, jiggling and juggling. Listen.
Your kind of show.
my kind of show. I reckon you looked like David Hasselhoff when he was about 25,
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an insult, but thank you.
How tall are you? 6'1", 6'2"?
6 flat.
6 flat, brunette. Is that how you reference a dude? I know you talk to women, brunette, blonde, brown hair. Brown hair, side path, nice slick little head, haircut, little 6-pack.
Just laying on the compliments here.
Little red shorts at the events.
We skip the red shorts. Always skip the red shorts.
I reckon David Hasselhoff would have been proud. In fact, maybe you could apply for the Baywatch 3 movie. You could, huh? What do you think, Jim?
It'd be an absolute show for it.
So just for clarification, right? So some of the events that you assist with would go from open water swim events to triathlons to more recently ice swimming, right? So we'll touch on a little bit of that as we progress through the interview. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Where do you want me to start?
So let's start with, I guess, the start of your surf life-saving stroke guarding experience, and then how you got into eventing and why.
So start off very begrudgingly. I didn't even want to become a guard when I was a little whippersnapper. It was taking my parents to kind of arm twist me in, finding out later that both my dad, granddad, and great-granddad had all been guards before me, so it felt right getting into it.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool. So I started off in the surf sports realm, competing in canoe. And then after that, I did my IRB driver qualification, got a one-off call-up to do an event safety for a event at Orewa. Found out that I really loved it. And then kind of stuck with it from there. Got a lot of mentoring, did a lot of development through surf. And then that was for about 5 or 6 years. From there, then got asked to start doing beach series at Orewa. That's how I met Jason Harriman, the event director from Ocean Swim Series.
Yep.
And then he kind of decided to give me a role and progress me through creating a team of private lifeguards, and that's currently where we are now. So that role just kind of morphed away from surf lifesaving Northern Region events, surf carnivals, into open water swimming events. And ever since then, it's just been a case of adding more and more events through.
Would you say the technical skill set for a surf lifesaving comp versus an ocean
very different
swim series very different? So you've had to evolve and learn your own.
Yeah, lots of that. There's lots of parallels and overlaps and similarities. Like I could take any guard that has worked an event for surf lifesaving and as a surf event and pull them into one of our events very easily, but it's not the same. It's not even close. There at surf, you're looking after other lifeguards. They're all competent swimmers. You know their qualifications and their skill levels. Versus here for Ocean Swim Series, we're looking after people that we don't know. There's no baseline. There's no, hey, I know that these guys are competent mentally and physically to do the task ahead of them. So you're at a more high-risk situation. But on the flip side of that, you also don't have the craft that you'd be competing with at surf events. So it is different, but there's a lot of parallels that come across.
Which do you prefer?
Ooh, I definitely prefer the complexity of open water swimming events. Everyone's different. Surf lifesaving events, it's very same me. Once you do a couple seasons, once you've done everything, you kind of know what it is going to be. Yes, you have different surf conditions, but with open water swimming events, every event is different, and it's just so unique, which is so much fun.
Finding staff?
One of the hardest things that I've had to come across previously with surf, you could just pull from any surf club. You could send out messages constantly. It's been a lot of personal networking from me to start off with to build the team, and now using my team to then further grow the team. So it's been a bit of a snowball effect now that we're at kind of almost a critical mass. We're getting new job applications almost on the daily, which is amazing. But yeah, it just takes time to get there.
How do you, what kind of qualifications are you looking for in your safety staff? You know, obviously a surf lifeguard award would probably tick the box, but what about somebody who...
Red shorts, dude.
Yeah, what if someone came up with red shorts and a pool lifeguard qualification?
So kind of going back a step in regards to safety and how we operate as Event Lifeguard in New Zealand, which is the formal entity that provides safety, which who I work for, we require all of our team to be surf lifeguards. That's a mandatory. You must be a refreshed current surf lifeguard with all of your...
I was going to ask about the refreshed.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got no danger of getting a job then. That's cool.
Exactly. If you do your refresher, though, then I'll happily have you. But yeah, so that's a mandatory for us. So if they're a pool guard, then there's kind of a little bit of a grey space. Cool, we might be able to work with you, but it's only in very edge cases that I can even find something to work with them along. But the standard rule, the company line, is you must be a surf lifeguard.
Yeah.
Just to meet that base standard.
What do you reckon our safety levels at events compare to the rest of the world? Are we up there? Are we sort of sitting in the average status, or are we really shit?
The operation that I run parallels what Surf Lifesaving New Zealand runs, which parallels what Surf Lifesaving International runs. So in terms of a global standard, I'd say we're doing pretty well. We're definitely not the gold global standard. I would love to get there.
I suppose we need more events to be able to get us to that level, right? More 100%. Practice, more everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And where we're at with the number of competitors as well, it's still quite small.
Yeah.
Like you look at, was it Rottnest that we were chatting about a couple of weeks back.
18 kilometres, about 1,000 swimmers.
Exactly.
Each swimmer's got a boat.
Like the level of safety there is unparalleled, but it's also the scale of that event is unlike anything I've ever had the experience or pleasure to work with.
Okay, so leading on from that, it's not cheap to swim that event.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right, so you don't arrive there and pay, $80 and off you go. And I know a lot of the guys in our swim group, Jim, and sort of just all over, a common theme is, oh my God, it's so expensive to do a race, right? Now, I don't think the average Joe knows what happens behind the scenes in terms of permits. I don't know if they think all the lifeguards work for free because it's fun to catch a suntan.
We're not volunteering that, which I can tell you.
We need to pay for all of that. There's the IRBs that you need to pay for. There's engine servicing. Some of your events have got scaffolding. There's a lot of stuff that goes in behind the scenes, which I don't think an average swimmer fully appreciates. Right? So if we want to continue to have races in New Zealand, open water swim races, unfortunately there's a cost to enter them, right? But
and that cost is only going up.
100%. But you get the peace of mind that you're going to be looked after, you're going to be safe, you're going to have your time recorded, and all of those other things that go with it. I'm sure you can relate. I certainly can. I've done a lot of the Ocean Swim Series races and the Beach Series races, and I have never felt unsafe.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Shows that my team's doing their job.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's important to, I guess, try and educate the swimmers why that cost is there. Right? Same as when you go to a road race. People are like, oh my God, why is it so expensive to do a marathon? Right? Because you've got to close the roads and pay the cops, and there's a lot of costs that are involved.
There's a lot of costs there. Like you look at.
Oh, is that in South Africa? You got to pay the cops off, or is it just paying the?
Well, in South Africa, you sort of ask for forgiveness as opposed to asking for permission because it's a little bit easier. Right? I think Kiwis generally do it the other way around. So
most of the time, we try. Yeah. But you look at just some of the events that we put on. It's the traffic management alone for one of our events was more than the cost of the safety. Like we spent more just closing a little road than we did on my whole lifeguard team, just because the cost of closing specific roads is just skyrocketing, and it's becoming harder and harder for the little guy to try and operate those events, unless you have the technical know-how to produce it yourself, and not everyone does because you need years of experience.
Yeah. And not all the sponsors are jumping over events like this to sponsor and throw money at them post-COVID, right?
Exactly. So, most businesses are still in recovery. Like, I know that's where we've been.
So don't take this personally, but the next question is, does equipment matter?
Oh, hell yes.
Not your equipment. Equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
Talk to me about that.
So,
in my mind, that seems like quite an expensive sort of key part.
You're looking at for a new setup for an Arancia, which is a surf lifesaving IRB. You're looking at $35,000 for a brand new setup, and that's new straight off the production line. And you're looking at a lifespan of potentially 10 to 20 years, depending on how well it's looked after. That's expensive.
Quite a long, but it's got quite a decent lifespan.
It's got a very very good lifespan, assuming it's looked after and not abused.
Depending on how hard they work here.
Exactly. Yeah. The engines won't last that long. You're maybe looking at kind of 5 to 8 years out of an engine, maybe a little bit longer, before they need to retire. But yeah, like gear is expensive and mandatory. Like I've been operating with Takakats. Not that they're a bad craft, but like you can only carry 2 patients. You compare that with the surf spec Arancia, you can have 8 to 10 patients. It's not particularly maneuverable when it's that heavy. It gets called, it's nicknamed submarining when you're at that level of people because you're that much in the water, but it can still handle the task.
Have you ever had a situation where you've had 8 rescued swimmers on
10 rescued swimmers. 10 rescued swimmers in a single craft, and then I had that multiplied across 5 different craft. All had 10 patients on board.
Bad day out.
Very bad day out. Current was moving like no tomorrow. So I had to move a lot of swimmers. I think that day we moved around 110 swimmers.
Wow, that's crazy.
The team earned their paycheck that day.
And generally speaking, the swimmers get pulled out. Are they sort of happy to be pulled out, compliant, or do you take a little bit of abuse from the guys saying, hey, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing?
Bits and pieces. There's definitely times towards the back of the field when you're moving swimmers, they're just like, cool, I accept this, I'm in danger, or I can see that I'm nearly in danger. But if you're moving someone that's just significantly off course, you can quite commonly get quite a bit of lip. I've had to disqualify a person or two because they gave my team or myself a bit of abuse, and I was like, we're not here to stand for that, and I'll have a chat with whoever the race director is and
so
manage it from there.
That's interesting. I've done some event guarding probably back in quite a few years back before it became as professional as it was.
It was a different century, yeah.
Yeah, a different century. But what I found was that a lot of swimmers would give, the younger the guard was, the more lip they gave. As soon as I arrived on the scene, I was able to
100%
sort it out. It was quite disappointing, actually, that they would try to sort of pull age as a rank on somebody that was looking after them. So,
I think that's
it's very, very, I noticed it quite variable. Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
I've definitely noticed that a lot. Was this case of like, I'll be working with younger board paddlers and they'll be out there trying to direct swimmers, and then I'll come onto scene and they'll have the same scenario. It's just a case of they'll just very quickly listen, because one, typically it'll be a female board paddler and I'm a guy. I'm a male, and they'll be like, they'll listen.
That's disappointing as well, isn't it? Yeah.
And there's far too many examples for me to unpack here as to people just not listening to safety because they think they know what they're doing. They feel confident. So it's not about you being a safe swimmer in your own right. It's about you and everyone else being safe. Because the amount of times I have to take resources off to care for that one swimmer because they're swimming off course puts the rest of the field in
So
danger.
I think everyone knows that you occasionally get the unreasonable swimmer, but just from a sort of more general point of view, what are some of the behaviours that you would like to see less of in terms of swimming? I'm not talking about the rudeness, you kind of get those, but just is there sort of anything that you could ask let's pretend we're talking to a whole big swim community out there. What could swimmers do to make the event guard's life better?
This is going to be potentially a bit annoying, but this is the biggest feedback I've had from my guards over the last couple of weeks, just from events, is not having earplugs. So we can actually communicate effectively. I know it doesn't work for everyone. I know some people need
taking earplugs out when someone's talking to you.
Or just not swimming with an earplug, because the amount of times that we will need to get our tube and slap the water in front of them to try and get their attention, because people can't hear you or they don't want to hear you.
Oh, that's an interesting. I'd never ever thought of or considered that. So swimming with earplugs is getting more common, is it?
Far more common. I think Swim T3 and the like are moving a lot of earplugs at the moment, because we're seeing that at races quite commonly. I'd put it at 80, maybe 90% of the field will have earplugs.
Wow.
And communication is just nigh impossible with a lot of people. They'll if I'm going over to a swimmer, they'll typically have to pop up, take an earplug out, listen, put the earplug back in, and then continue swimming. It's just.
Unless they buy those special earplugs that you can hear with, right? Ocean ears.
Ocean ears, yeah, I've got a pair of those.
Those would be amazing, but then
people just put that press stick, blue tacky, whatever, stick on the wall stuff in their ears.
Duncan swims with blue tack from memory.
Yeah. You probably taught people how to do it when they go swimming in the ocean.
Can't hear you. Let me take my blue tack.
Just for reference, I have tried to yell at Duncan before on swims, and he can't hear anything.
Oh, he can actually. He just ignores you, James.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
I put blue tack in when I get home as well. All right. Can you swim?
I can swim.
So that can you swim like?
I could save you if I had to, if that's what you're asking.
Gotcha.
So yes, my swimming competency and strength is significant in order to do a rescue.
Yep.
But in terms of if I'm actually a swimmer, will I go swim a K? No, that's not my cup of tea.
So when you jump in at a surf comp, you're jumping in with a wetsuit, a life jacket, a helmet, and fins.
Correct.
Is that the same sort of spec that you would have at an ocean swim race, or a little bit lighter?
A little bit lighter. Don't need the fins, because the way I train my staff is you never get out of the boat, because there's no purpose in my view, and this is coming from experience working with a lot more senior guards than myself. There's no point in wearing fins. You're not doing rock rescues. You're not getting out of the boat. That's redundant. And helmets are also redundant. It's like we do it. We're not doing rock work. We're not in big surf.
Gotcha.
You're never going to have an event in the conditions that really means that your guards need a helmet. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Precisely. Yeah. So there's all of those things. I fundamentally disagree with helmets for surf as it is, let alone adding that into ocean swim series events. It just doesn't agree with the environment. like assessing all the risks, doing as much work as I have with events over the years, it's not necessary to be as kitted as what surf would kit for. But in saying that, our guards are just as well trained, if not better trained, for events. And the kit is there and respects what we need. Like most standard IRBs would be kitted with a single tube. We run 2 tubes because you would quite commonly need either A, to throw one overboard, or B, your driver and your crewman to be able to come tap swimmers simultaneously. So there is all of that different things that we take into account.
Other than the obvious of a swimmer putting up his hand, how would you spot a swimmer in trouble? What are the sort of type of scenarios that you look at?
So other than the classic of like, so for our use case, we wouldn't really have the classic climbing ladder or any of those drowning symptoms. Most of our swimmers would be cramping, or they've got their hand up. If there's a bunch of swimmers all together, you typically go investigate. If they're just a head bobbing in the water, you'd go investigate.
Swimming the wrong direction. Doing the wrong stroke.
There's a whole bunch of other things that are out there that you would look for. Of course, you're always looking for standard drowning symptoms, but typically when you're looking at, call it a 3-kilometre race, most people would know that they can swim 3Ks. No. Drowning's not a large thing for us. Unfortunately, not in my career, there have been drownings and heart attacks and heart conditions that have happened at ocean swim or open water events. So that is something to be mindful of, is just that swimmer that is just dead in the water.
Yeah, but those are almost always medical events that lead to that.
Correct.
As opposed to an ability to swim.
Correct. That's what we've been really fortunate about over the last several years is we've always, all of our swimmers have the ability to swim. It's just a case of, is it the right conditions for them, or are they unwell on the day? So you'll find out typically within the first kind of 200 metres as to what's going to happen. Is that swimmer competent to go? You look at the Wellington swim, we had, I want to say 10 people pulled out on the shorter distance within the first 200 metres, just because they knew on that day their body couldn't handle it.
So about 10 years in the making to get your experience levels to where they are. A lot of big events, probably, I would imagine the biggest being Rangitoto to St. Heliers, about 1,000 odd swimmers.
Yeah, for open water swimming.
Tons of things to look out for.
Oh, yeah.
Then of late, you got invited to come and provide water safety at St. Bathans for New Zealand ice swimming champs. Now, for all intents and purposes, on paper, we would say, hey, same safety rules apply. Swimmers in the water, off you go. It should be easy as pie, right? In
theory, until you get there.
Talk to me about that. How was that experience?
That was unlike anything I've ever done before. That was such a new experience for me. Your ratio would kind of be 1 to 20, 1 to 25, sometimes up to 1 to 50.
In a normal
swim event, you're looking at one boat per swimmer and in ice swimming. It's unreal, the level of safety and also the level of care that each of those swimmers need. It's not because ISA was overboard with safety. Each swimmer needed that much care and detail and attention. And it was just the extremes of that, what these people were putting their bodies through being in that sub 5 degrees Celsius water was unreal to me.
Were you cold on the boat?
I was wearing 5 layers and I was still cold. So I had full thermals, full wetsuit, jumpers, track pants, life jacket, and a whole bunch of stuff. And I was still cold. And I was in the sun. It was relatively dry. Thank God we didn't have any rain or snow. But it was cold enough that it could have snowed. It was a beautiful experience, but I went in thinking I knew everything. And within the first day of operations, I was like, okay, cool. I need to take a step back and I need to just sit and learn. It was so new for me to have a medic in the boat with me.
Yeah.
So I had the honour of working with the head medic at St. Bathans. Her name was Di. She was sitting as my crewman for the day. Very different experience working with...
What a dodgy name for a medic,
Yeah. It is. You must have had a great experience. I believe you shared a camper van with a pair of clever dicks. I was just wondering how you kept the camper van warm at night.
I think I actually did manage to keep the camper van warm at night. It was very cold that whole trip.
The first night was freezing, right? I think we learned some tricks by the second
night. We had frost on the inside of the windows that night.
It was cold.
So, do you reckon the lessons that you learned and the experiences that you've had with ice swimming would assist you or sort of add to your arsenal, if I can put it that way, when it comes to lifeguarding?
100%. The way that I learnt how swimmers respond when they're cold or when they're distressed was significantly heightened. We had a few events happen down on the swim where we need to evacuate swimmers quite rapidly. That's very similar for me, kind of all my muscle memory kicked in, but the high acuity of each of the swimmers for their each individual needs was quite significant. You would be looking at their medical file before you went out with each swimmer being like, cool, what does this specific swimmer need? Where do they need me to sit? How am I operating? And that changes swimmer to swimmer. So am I guiding them or am I tailing them? So what do they need? Which is just so different. And yes, that did significantly add to my arsenal. It gave me a lot of training as to be able to operate a lot closer than I would have beforehand. I'd be having the boat right next to the shoulder of a swimmer and be very comfortable with that after I did my time at St. Athens, just because I needed literal eye contact with that swimmer. It was unreal. But
so in that environment, after you, Jim, go.
So we made tow floats compulsory at St. Athens.
Yes. At my recommendation.
That was your recommendation. What do you think about tow floats in general for a general open water swim? Is it overkill? Is it just something that we should do for ice swimming, or would you like to see more of it, or some of it even?
I'm torn on that one. I see the utility of it for St. Athens, where it was high need, where you have examples of swimmers that will just stop swimming and they'll just drop like a stone because people are pushing themselves that far. A tow float was mandatory, it was needed for that safety risk. For an open water swim event, I don't know if I would say it's necessary. I would love to see it, but I understand there's also a whole bunch of other factors. Like if I take in the scenario of when I had 10 people on my boat, if all those 10 people had tow floats as well, I think I'd be getting ropes stuck in my engine. So there is that balancing act, and I should do my best when I look after the safety to make sure that there's enough safety there so you guys don't need a tow float. I think if there was less safety, then yes, you'd need tow floats. But for where I'm at for the operation I run,
that's cool.
But for swimming external to an event, when you just open water swimming, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just the visibility.
The visibility. And also being able to keep an emergency form of communication in that tow float at any time is just, can literally be life-saving.
Yeah. So generally when you're in boats at an event, you're above the water, higher up than the swimmers. You've obviously got a little bit more visibility to what's under the water. Have there been scenarios in your career where you've seen a couple of sharks or maybe blue bottles, whatever the case might be, you need to evacuate swimmers?
I have only had to postpone one event in my career. There was an event at Orewa where it was a surf event, and we had a sighting of a great white shark who was a pregnant mother. No one to the area at the time, just swam a little bit too close to the swim course.
Do you know who the father was?
I don't know who the father was. I'm sure some scientists out there will, but I don't. But yeah, so we had to postpone by, I think it was an hour. Evac the water. All events were temporarily cancelled, and all those events that were on the water were rerun. And that was a massive learning experience for me. But in terms of open water swim events, we've had a few close calls. We've definitely had, I can recall 2 off the top of my head in the last couple of years of sightings, but unconfirmed. So they need to be sighted once and then repeat sighted within the vicinity to then deem an evacuation.
So I was supporting a swimmer on the Chopper Challenge a couple of years ago, and a hammerhead swam right underneath the swimmer. And I said, look, there's a hammerhead. So I said, shh, don't tell the organisers for at least quarter of an hour. By the time, there was a hammerhead shark. We're a quarter of an hour ago. It's long gone. Okay, we can't do anything about it.
Exactly. But yeah, so we've got to work off a double confirmed sighting.
Yeah.
But before we can actually take any form of action.
There's plenty of people saw that one.
Yes.
What else do you consider to be dangerous conditions at a swim event?
I'm always analysing everything when I'm seeing at events. So day prior, I'll be looking at rain, bacteria conditions in the water. So I'm referring to safe swim, thunder, gust levels, where the tides are moving, how currents are going to impact the course. I'm looking at all of it. I need to look at all of it. There's not one thing that's greater than the other. They all impact each other quite significantly.
Talk to me about safe swim.
Had a bit of a history with safe swim. I've worked using that as a tool over the last several years, and they've definitely refined a lot of their methodology. They measure the bacteria content kind of out to probably about 1.5 meters, is where they'll measure all the bacteria from. Beyond that, it kind of drops away.
Okay.
So it's an informing factor. It's not going to make or break our swims. We've worked with safe swim to find methodologies to like if there's a red water quality, we now know where it's safe to put our swimmers, how deep we need to start.
So that's a deep water start as opposed to a running start.
Correct.
Right? So if you're running, you're diving potentially into the measured bacteria.
Correct. And also the splash from you running is potentially going to hit other people in the face, and you just end up with lots of splash all over everybody.
But to walk through it and sort of...
As long as you keep your head... The science shows as long as you keep your head above the water to call it chest depth, for red and black, with the parameters that we've had the pleasure of working with, you're safe. As long as you get to that chest depth and then put your head under, you're okay. But you also need to repeat that upon exit. You also need to make sure that you do lift your head above that water.
So in other words, on the bullshit level 1 to 10, it's pretty high up on the bullshit level.
Be that as it may, that's what I've worked with council.
So I think it's an amazing tool. I really do.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's so many grey spots and loose ends that it's, So, for example, at some of those swims, granted, cool, hey guys, water's not safe, it's got to be a deep water start. So everybody goes in and we start off, deep water. And I hear your point, nobody's splashing, nobody's kicking, so technically start is safer. Nobody stops at the finish. So, I guess... I don't know.
I think a lot of it is just about making sure people are well informed.
Yeah.
And that was because I was a little bit involved in Swim Safe when I was working at the council, and it really was a risk tool that we told people what the risk was. We didn't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Then as soon as you start running events, then it becomes challenging. What do we do in that particular space? But it really was focused on looking after people, vulnerable people, toddlers and children in the shallows. That's the reason behind it. Everything else just gets complicated afterwards.
And you would know, Duncan, if you listened to your race briefings, you were told that your finish was the deep water finish. That was your technical finish point. I've
always got my earplugs in when the race briefs.
See, exactly. Earplugs, an issue. So... Yeah, the technical line would be, yes, your race does finish at the deep water finish line.
Yeah.
Understand that's not where the time's measured, which is annoying. We do factor that in when your times read, though, which a lot of people don't actually realise, is that we do take a subtraction away from whatever the time is to allow for that walk in. But yeah, it's just to avoid that risk of you guys getting unwell. Because the last thing we'd want is you to show up to the Rangitoto swim and have to do a deep water exit and then get sick and then not being able to continue swimming, not being able to do something you guys love, which is not anything I'd ever want to cop the blame for.
That's pretty deep, eh? It's not bad. Okay. What's the biggest dude you've ever pulled out into an IRB? And don't look at me with those eyes.
There's a couple names that there's a couple regulars that I have pulled in that have been big boys.
Yeah.
There's one that your lovely daughter, Duncan, actually helped me pull in.
Yep.
And I would put him around the 130 kilo mark.
That's a big body.
It's a big boy. It's a big boy.
Different technique that you guys use as opposed to a slim young lad like myself.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's it.
if that's what you're telling your listeners. But yeah, it's definitely a case of your techniques need to modify, and if you've got a heavy patient for the first time and you're working with someone that hasn't pulled in one before, it's difficult. It's not easy. Most of the guys who are a little bit on the large side of things are really good about it. They'll be really helpful and they'll assist as much as they can.
Gotcha.
But typically if they get into the point of we needing to pull them in, they're already exhausted. So sometimes it is a bit tricky. But yeah, there's many tactics that I have learned over my tenure to pick up bigger people.
Quite a lot of wedgies.
Yes.
A lot of wedges. Unfortunately, a lot of wedges. And I think I put a few nail nicks into a few wetsuits over the years, much to the dismay of some swimmers. But you've got to do what you've got to do when you're in a risky situation. You've just got to get them in the boat as fast as you can. And I've been very lucky with sometimes where I've already got a patient in the boat. The other patient will help get in the next patient. So swimmers are really lovely like that, as they'll jump in and assist as and when they can, which has been such a
it is a good community.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So would it be fair to say that what you guys do is very niche? I mean, prior to the business that you work for, I would imagine Surf Lifesaving would have assisted race organisers with their races.
Yep. Right? I am aware of 3 businesses, including our own, that operate in a remotely similar sphere.
Okay.
Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, they were called Jet Sport West, but they've rebranded to something else now, and us. So for the longest time, Surf Lifesaving New Zealand and whatever club it was has been the quote-unquote gold standard. And then the other guys would just would fill in where possible. But yeah, it's very niche. It's a very specific set of requirements of both not only knowledge but equipment as well. Like to find someone that would be able to do exactly what we do is not easy. Not in such a small environment like New Zealand.
Yeah, maybe for a race with like 100 people, but not 1,000, right? That's the tricky part.
1,000's a whole other ballgame. You can't just have a whole bunch of mates on kayaks and mismatch boats to be able to perform everything you need to execute an event safely.
Cool. So we've talked a lot about the safety, but I just wanted to round out some of the other things that are involved in events. I'm assuming that you get involved in other aspects of events than just the safety.
I do what I can.
Yeah. So what are the other things that
the understatement of the century?
There's a lot of things that I'm guessing just happens that swimmers don't really see. You've got to organise all of the volunteers. You've got registration processes to go through. You've got the various digital electronic systems that are needed, both timing and also just getting everybody's names and everything there. How much effort kind of is involved in that, or is it a well-oiled machine because you guys have been doing so many events? It's
a very well-oiled machine now. Had you asked me this a couple of years ago, there's a lot of background effort that goes behind it. If you ask someone like Rebecca, who does all the registration for the Ocean Swim Series, she works year round just making sure that everything's ready for the season. It's not just a summer gig for her or I. There's a lot of back end that goes into making sure that the season's ready. Just timing is you've got to make sure that that timing chip is associated with the correct event, which is associated with the right person and they're in the right age groups. There's a lot of data that goes in behind making sure everything is correct.
Well, I guess just no events on the same weekend, for example.
Yep.
Permits.
Yep.
Harbour master communication, all of those legalities that need to be done.
Exactly. Like I said earlier, it's I'm already planning the next season. Just to make sure we get all the ducks in a row, making sure that the calendars all line up with not only our events, but other events that we will work alongside with, like Ironman. We need to make sure that it's not going to clash.
So here's an example, right? The Wellington lighthouse swim that you guys did a couple of weeks ago, right? I can guarantee you now that your swimmers don't know that a large part of that team were up at I think it was 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Busy with setup. I mean, that's a mammoth task. Setting up and pack down. is huge, right?
Okay,
And,
so that day was a 2 o'clock set up, and I want to say it was about a 3 o'clock pack down.
Yeah.
So you're
It's
looking
a big
at a 13 hours of operations. It's a massive day.
Big day.
We had to do that both this year and last, and it was just diabolical.
But that's why you drive a Maserati, right? Because you get paid so well.
I drive a Mazda, not a Maserati.
A Maserati.
There we go. If I got to drive a Maserati, then I'd be doing something right, but not quite yet.
Okay, so to add to your skill set, there's one of your mates who's a bit dodgy who asked you to assist with some marathon swimming.
Oh, yeah?
Not so long ago, right? So that, again, is a very different skill set and a very different experience. Again, I guess, an 8, 9, 10-hour day. How did that compare to everything else you've worked with going backwards?
Very similar to ice swimming. Very similar. Very high acuity, very mindful of what they're doing. And just constant monitoring. The feeding was a new aspect for me. I've never been on a swim for that long. My previous longest swim to that was the Taupo Epic, which was 10Ks, where the swimmer self-fed. But yeah, doing a marathon swim and supporting them through is something else. And there's a lot of parts that I don't understand, and I'm happy to admit that.
Sure. Learning curve.
Exactly. It's like everyone needs to learn, and this first time was a great learning opportunity for me. There's lots of takeaways and lots of understanding as to how to feed a swimmer better, how much they rely on the IRB, what equipment I should have had and didn't have.
Where the IRB needs to be placed, what engine to use on the IRB.
Exactly. That was a little bit overzealous, and they packed the bigger engine. I should have brought the smaller engine. But there's pros and cons to each side of things. So I'm just still in the learning process because, I've only done one.
Yeah. And so, again, just some of the behind-the-scenes stuff in terms of the analysis of tides and winds and, which route do we take? Do we go clockwise? Do we go anti-clockwise? Why have we not done this route before? And generally, you'll figure it out, when you try it, that there's a very good reason why it hasn't been done.
Exactly.
That's the definition of experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
All your past mistakes added up. Yeah.
It's that whole balancing act between wisdom and knowledge. It's just like I can know everything about a swim course because I definitely delved into that Rangitoto circumnavigation when I jumped into it. But oh boy, I was naive. Like I knew everything. I knew the track. I knew exactly where I wanted to put the swimmer. But actually having that swimmer there and the need and the way that the different swimmers operate was just so new to me. Like I've never had.
Yeah. So it's easy to have facts, but the knowledge only comes later.
Precisely.
Yep.
Precisely.
Okay, cool.
So the maths doesn't always work out, right? So the wind picks up where it shouldn't have picked up and all of those good things, right? Swimmer runs out of gas.
Yep. So someone has an injury that you don't know about, starts cramping up. There's all sorts of extra things that can be added on that.
I was just going to wrap up. So is there anything else that you kind of really want to get in before we close up?
No, it's, yep.
So the one sort of question I was there, you've done this for quite a while. So what is it that you get out of it? Is, are there parts of it that you quite enjoy and, keeps you coming back, or is it just more of a job for you?
It's definitely not just a job. I do love it. The stress and the pressure and making sure everything goes according to plan and that everything just works. I love that. I love the ability to kind of show up at an event, make it happen, and make it disappear 48 hours later. We can come in, do a race, have 1,000 people, and then disappear, and no one can really know that they'll be here.
Maybe an important piece that we didn't touch on is that other than the surf lifesaving experience and passion for assisting swimmers, is you actually studied event management, right? So those things all came together quite nicely.
So I've been doing event management and working in and around events probably since I was 14. Yeah. Most of my life I've been in and around events and event management, and I love it. It's what I live and breathe. And
did you get paid at 14? Isn't it illegal before you answer?
No, it's not illegal.
Don't you have to be 15?
Not with parental consent.
Your dad get half?
Is that what you charge your kids?
I don't think he did. I think I got the full cash payment. But yeah, so that experience was very basic. It was very much just assisting and in and around. But yeah, it kind of grew and grew from there. Started with stage management for a school production, and then jumped in full blaze of working for food trucks and events like that, and then eventually managed to get roped into sporting events and half marathons and now swimming events. So it's all come full circle, starting with surf and then doing other things and now coming back to it. It's been really, really good. But no, I do love an event, and I love being able to just actively problem solve and get through the day with something breaking, and just being able to make it work.
Well, that's awesome. I certainly appreciate all the guards when I'm out there swimming. I do indeed. And I'm not just saying that. I know that it's almost every guard that like a swimmer you talk to feels the same way. So thanks for all the effort.
Of course.
One question. I don't know whether you
smile.
Yeah. A year and a half away now.
Yes.
Do you have social media, or if one of the swimmers wanted to get hold of you, or do you have any contact details, and are you prepared to sort of answer any questions if somebody were to flick you a note?
More than happy to.
So,
do you want that just in the...
if you just give it to me, I'll put it into the show notes.
Sounds good. In the show notes it is?
Yeah,
I'll chuck it on the Instagram account as well.
Yeah. Put it in the Instagram account, so if anybody... Yeah,
more than happy to answer any questions that get thrown my way.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful having you on Clever Dicks.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Dude, David Hasselhoff would be proud of you.
Thanks, Duncan.
In our next episode, we talk to Ryan Stramrud. Ryan is a South African swimmer and has done some amazing swims. He swum the Robben Island swim 140 times and swum both in the Arctic and Antarctic. Ryan is a motivational speaker now and has got some great stories. It'll be a great episode. See you then. Bye.